Hey everyone, Scrapper Brad here. So today I have several types of switches, and these switches come off different appliances like, say, ovens and stoves, uh, dishwashers, washing machines, dryers, and the like. And while they're really small, they do have some real good stuff in them. Those of you that have taken these apart before, I know they come with brass, copper, and even trace amounts of silver. Now, whether you actually want to scrap these things, take them apart, or just sell them to your scrapyard as whole, that's really up to you. I imagine my scrapyard would give me something like, well, dirty brass or maybe 30% brass price on these. And I have been building up a pretty big bucket of these switches. Now, personally, I like to take them apart. Whether it's an efficient use of your time, I don't really know. Probably not, especially if you're a full-time scrapper. But I just enjoy doing it. So let's get to it. Now, as you can see, there are several different types of switches here. Some really small like this, up to the bigger ones like this. Let's start by taking this one apart. Now there's several ways. Usually I just kind of try to pull that off. Pull this little brass piece out. And open that up. This plastic, of course, I'll just discard. And then, I don't know, my camera isn't very good on my phone. One of these days I am going to get a better camera. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a bunch of brass here, and then there's these two copper, not sure what you'd call those, but two copper arms, I'll call them. And each of them come with their little silver buttons. Now in the older units, these buttons were almost entirely silver. Lately I've seen them either mostly copper with a coating of silver on top. Sometimes I'm even starting to see them as just copper. I've even seen some as entirely brass. I think as the price of metals, especially precious metals, goes up, then the manufacturers, just to keep the cost down, have to make do by using the less expensive metals. That's okay though. Brass and copper are still at pretty good prices. And I only expect the prices to go up, so let's start taking these out. And normally, I just kind of pull them out like that. And they come out pretty easy. It's very satisfying when they pop out like that. For those of you who've done this, probably know what I'm talking about. Again, these look like they might be, this one looks like it may be entirely silver. It kind of has I think it's sort of reflecting the brass, plus it has a little bit of tarnish on it. So these you could take those little silver buttons out. Now, Scrap It All has a really good video on how to remove the silver from these, these types of things, the small amounts of silver. I'll link that in the description. What I'll do for now is I'll just separate the copper from the brass. And I'll set this one aside to take out the silver. In fact, maybe I'll just do that now, see if I can do that. I've been building up a kind of a vial of these. I only have about a ½ ounce right now, and like I say, it may not be as far as a time-wise dollar per value or dollar per hour value. Probably not a great use of time. But again, since I'm not a full-time scrapper, and the fact that I just enjoy doing this makes it worthwhile for me. And I just pulled the little silver piece out. I don't know if you can see that, but it is just tiny. Yeah, Scrap It All's video is really good because he does really close-up shots. Shows you how to do that. So I'll just set that silver aside. Set the copper aside. And then what I'll do is I'll also set, once I get the silver out of these, then I'll set the brass in its own little place. Moving on to this one, I think this came off of a washing machine. I can't quite remember. But there's where the knobs fit on. So you just turn those knobs, and yeah. So first thing I'll do, when I was taking this washer apart, these were all connected with insulated copper wire, so I just cut the copper wire off. Now I'll take these little brass ends and I'll put them in my brass pile. And usually these little ends here are brass as well. Sometimes though, I've been finding that they've been magnetic. Just to check on that, I'll run my magnet, and those do stick. So that is not really worth taking these out. But typically there is also some copper and brass and even some silver inside. So what I'll do with these is I'll stick a flathead screwdriver under there and just pop them out. Now I need to get a different flathead. I was being dumb and using this as a lever or a wedge, and it ended up snapping the tip off. I really need to get some proper wedges or things instead of using my flathead screwdrivers. But since I don't have it, let's see, usually, yeah, you can just pull it off that way as well. Now from here you can see little bits of copper. This piece is always, I've always found this piece magnetic, but there is some copper attached to the bottom. So yeah, if you can see that. And the knob itself, this is actually cast aluminum. Now you can break this plastic off. There's also a little piece of steel right here that you'd need to take off to make it clean. Usually I just throw these in with my dirty aluminum. And of course, that I'll just throw in with my steel shred. So let's take these out. And I'll want to separate, of course, this copper from the steel here. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a good silver button right there. I wonder if I can take that off right now. Yep. Okay. Looks like it's embedded on, because it is magnetic. Yeah, I can see that it's inside like a little steel casing. So I don't know if I'll keep that one. I think there is quite a bit of silver in it though for how small it is. I'll just take that off and then set these copper pieces aside. The rest, well, actually there's another, I don't know if you can see that, but there's another little steel silver contact right there. So I'll just do what I can to take that off. Well, I'll do that one off camera. I'll just set that aside. And the rest of this I'll just throw in with my steel shred. Now, those of you that are kind of new to scrapping or new to my channel, it doesn't, if you're just throwing this in with steel shred, it doesn't matter that the plastic, there's still a bunch of plastic on this. Because there is steel on it, they'll take it. I think it just goes into some type of big shredder anyway, and then they extract the steel from that. Let's try this one. This one was one of the main switches of whatever it was I took apart. First, again, it looks like there's going to be probably quite a bit of brass in there just by the number of contacts there are. and probably a lot of copper as well. And when I say a lot, it's really relative to the size of this. So again, I'll just start by taking those off. Let's just make sure that isn't magnetic. The other thing is these, like I said, they're usually brass, but they can also be copper. So I like to scratch them. And that is brass. It reveals the gold color underneath. And they coat these in, I don't know, either tin or sometimes silver, or maybe there's other metals they coat them in. But I'll just stick that in my brass. And I'll go ahead and take the rest of these off. As you can see, this can be kind of tedious work. And so I usually set these aside for days that are like cold, like today it's pretty cold and it's actually snowing outside. And normally I do this kind of thing while I'm either, watching a TV show or movie, or listening to music, or listening to an audiobook. Things that I do anyway. This just makes them a little bit more productive. So let's go ahead and take, hopefully I don't need the screwdriver to take this off. There we go. Oh, saw that flying off. That's another reason why you want to wear safety glasses when you're taking these things apart. This has rust on it. I would assume that's magnetic. Yep. Set that in steel shred. This, I don't know, this looks like it'll be magnetic as well. Yep. So set that in steel shred, and this, I'd be shocked if this wasn't magnetic. Yep. More steel shred. Now the rest of this looks like it's mostly copper. So I'll go ahead and take that out. Now from these, I've never known these not to be copper, but just to be safe, run a run a magnet over them, okay, and they don't stick. And this, to get all these, you're really going to have to break these. You could even make it quicker and go out and bash these open with a hammer and break it in pieces. And again, there's a little contact there. I'm guessing that's silver, but really probably the best way to tell is there's this, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's this little liquid that you can pour on silver, and that liquid then turns a specific color if it is silver. I know there's a lot of people who do silver recovery. Scrapping on the Fly, I know, does. Scrapping Scorpion, and I think that's right, recycling also. Yeah, there's several others though, and there's lots of good videos on how to really extract the silver, as far as, you put it in different solutions, you dissolve the other metals, and then you're left with the pure silver. I don't think I'll ever get into that. Well, I shouldn't say I don't think I'll ever get into that. I just don't foresee me doing it right now. I really don't have a good working space. One of these days I will get a proper workshop, but there's a lot of other things my wife and I want to save up for before that happens. One of those things, again, if you're new to my channel, is a really fun 20th anniversary trip that my wife and I plan on taking in a few years. We're coming up on our 18th anniversary, and the reason I really got into scrapping, and the reason I started this channel, was because, and you can see another contact there, was because I wanted to save up for, save up as much money as I can for that 20th anniversary trip with my wife. Just go wherever she wants to go without her worrying about money. Unfortunately, that fund isn't going very well. Life's happened a couple of times along the way, and we've had to dip into it. And also, we did just take our kids to Disneyland a few months back in October. Had a lot of fun. And we used my savings for that. The savings for the, you know. And I definitely think it was worth it. Had a lot of great memories and, so. But, no matter how much money we have, when our 20th anniversary rolls around, we'll still have a lot of fun. Anyway, I talk about my wife so much in my videos about that. Maybe it's time you saw a picture. I don't know if you can see that, but that was our wedding day almost 18 years ago. There's my beautiful wife standing next to some goofball. Not sure who that is. Oh, and kind of a thing in the background. I didn't notice this till later, and I know you can't see that. I don't know if you can really even see the picture well, but that is my maternal grandmother. She was my last grandparent alive. I feel lucky because I have solid memories of all 4 grandparents. But she was my last grandparent to pass away. And through her, I proudly claim, even though I'm a born and raised American citizen, I proudly claim that I am 1/4 Canadian. I follow lots of Canadian scrappers, like Nice Junk, HH Recycling, Canadian Treasure Hunter, Miss Canadian Scrapper, Big Country Scrapper, and of course, like Tin Man Scrapper and Thubprint, lots of others. All great channels. And the reason I claim, though, that I'm 1/4 Canadian is because my maternal grandmother was born and raised in southern Alberta in a small town called Cardston, or I can't remember offhand if it was Cardston or Hillspring. They were both pretty close to each other, and she grew up on a small farm just outside of one of those towns. And she used to tell me stories about growing up there. She was a child of the Depression. She said it didn't really affect them much, because they had their farm, and so they were able to live on what they grew and the livestock they raised and that. And me being a child of the suburbs, I know nothing of that kind of work. I just know that it's hard work. But, she had a lot of fun too. I remember as a little boy, I remember getting really envious of her. She would tell how she had her own horse and she would ride it to and from her elementary school. And she talked about the winters, even though they were super cold, they were a lot of fun. She said that they would go out and build huge bonfires on the frozen lakes because the ice would get so thick that it didn't matter. There'd be a bunch of people out on the lake and they'd have just lots of fun. And she also talked about how we know nothing about cold here, which is true. I've been other places. I'm born and raised in Utah, and the coldest it really gets around here on average is down maybe in the teens in the Fahrenheit, and maybe in the high 90s, low 100s. But it's a dry heat and a dry cold, so you don't get any of that humidity with the cold or with the heat. And but she'd say that the weather would get really cold, and they would come in, and then she said a Chinook wind would blow in, because before it would be around negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and that Chinook wind would blow in and it would warm it up to negative 10 degrees, and everybody would all go out of their houses, and they'd all, probably that's when they'd build the bonfires on the lakes. She just thought, and we all thought that was funny. But anyway, like I say, well, how she ended up in the States is she came down to go to college, and she was applying for a visa, but then she found out, when she was applying for the visa, that she was actually a dual citizen of Canada and the United States. The reason being is her parents were citizens of the United States, and before she was born they moved from Utah up to the Cardston Hill Spring area in southern Alberta. And I guess that made her an American citizen, so she lived as a dual citizen her entire life. Anyway, here's this other type of, you'll get these small switches here. These are really easy to open. Well, these kinds are. There's another switch that looks very similar to it, and these are actually harder to open. You can open these just with your fingers, and then you see all these brass and copper just held in by tension. They're really easy to pull out. You can usually just do these by hand. Yep. And now you've got all the brass and copper out. And there are some silver buttons on these. This one, the reason why you can't just do that is because, I don't know if you can see, there's this rivet that goes all the way through. So these usually have to either crack open or smash open with a hammer. But I'll go ahead, maybe it will let me take it out a little bit. Oh, there we go. It just cracked open on me. Okay, so take these. Now this one, you'll run across a lot of these. These are brass ends covered in plastic. I do keep these separate. I did just take a big bucket of these into the scrapyard. I can't remember the price, and it wasn't great. I think it was dirty brass, like 15 cents a pound for in US dollars. So I would just set these in a bucket, and I take them in once that bucket gets full enough. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, if you made it this far, you're awesome. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.